My name is Robert Pearce, and almost every week I receive a telephone call from a financial advisor or stockbroker that's leaving their brokerage firm about what they can or cannot do when leaving the firm for another. And they often bring up the Broker Protocol Agreement. So what is the Broker Protocol Agreement? First, I'd like to give you a little history. I've been practicing for 40 years now. During the first 25 years of my career, there were a lot of disputes between brokerage firms whenever one broker left for another. And the reason is that they always fought over the clients. Clients who were free to leave at their whim. They didn't have to travel with a broker to a new firm. They could stay there, they could go anyplace else. But employment contracts often dictated who owned the customer information that was necessary to transfer accounts. And clients typically didn't have it. And when they tried to get it from the brokerage firms, they were often discouraged by the firm they were currently with not to transfer their accounts. There were also non-competition and non-solicitation agreements and employment agreements that brokers have with their firms that interfered with the transition. Notwithstanding, brokerage firms that wanted to recruit brokers often offered big bonuses to get them over, and they were willing to take on the litigation expense to get this broker with the production. And these battles went on and on and on. Now, before the battle started, generally what the scenario was that the broker was recruited by another firm, and he would go into the office secretly at night, and he would, handwrite customer information or print information off the computers, and then go home and give the information to the broker-dealer that was recruiting him. They would prepare the ACAT transfer sheets, and the broker would contact his client and say, listen, I'm leaving, and then he would disappear. He would never come back to the office. And the recruiting firm would get a head start, jump start, and try to recruit these clients. Almost immediately, the departing firm, the firm where the broker is recruited from, would go into court and file motions for a restraining order, and litigation would ensue. It was a great time for lawyers because there was a lot of litigation, a lot of attorney's fees, and it was very expensive, in addition to the bonuses that were being paid for the brokerage firms that carry on this way. Now, also in connection with this, as soon as the broker departed, the firm that employed him would set teams of brokers and assistants making phone calls to that broker's customers. And often those brokers and assistants disparaged the broker. So it was an additional layer of litigation in these types of disputes. So what happened? Back in 2004, 2005, Smith Barney, now known as Morgan Stanley, Merrill Lynch, and UBS said, listen, we've had enough of this litigation. We're suing you when Team A leaves. You're suing us when Team B left you. We're incurring a lot of attorney's fees that we don't need to. Let's come to an agreement on and allow for smooth transitions without lawsuits. And they entered into what was called the Broker Recruiting Protocol, or the Broker Protocol. Today there are over 1,900 brokerage firms that are part of the Broker Protocol. In the last year, however, there have been some defections, and I'll discuss that later. Well, the Broker Protocol Agreement resolved a lot of this litigation so long as the brokerage recruiting firm and the departing broker dotted all their I's and crossed all their T's and followed the agreement. They could switch firms without fear of being sued as long as they followed the agreement. And the agreement, the essential terms of the agreement was that the departing broker was required absolutely to submit a written resignation letter to the branch manager where he worked. Had to hand it to them. Couldn't just put it in the mail or send it by email and hopefully they get it days later. You had to hand it to them. The broker at that point, in addition to the resignation letter, is required to file a list of the clients he intends to contact and solicit to take with him. Not only the list, on the list they need to have the name of the client, the account title, and some clients had more account titles than just their name, so you need to list all the account titles, the account numbers, the address of the client, the phone call number of the client, and the email address. And the broker is allowed to take that list, but the only information that can't leave the firm is the account numbers. So all the information other than account numbers can go with the broker to the new firm. Now, the broker cannot give that list to the recruiting brokerage firm until after he has delivered the written resignation letter and delivered the list that I just described. And the reason for that is that the departing brokerage firm did not want the recruiting brokerage firm to get a head start. And so they made it that you cannot reveal that information until you officially resign, and then everybody starts trying to keep the clients. Again, the brokerage firm, the departing brokerage firm, they put their brokers and their assistants on the line. Hopefully they don't say anything stupid and disparage the departing broker. And you know, the broker that left the firm can go without fear of any lawsuits being filed against the recruiting brokerage firm or him or her. Now, there are some cases, there's another layer to this, and that is where the departing broker was at a firm where he was a member of a team, a partnership. And now there's generally a partnership agreement that might have additional restrictions that you have to be aware of. One thing that you can understand and feel sure of is that that agreement will not be construed to limit a broker from taking the customer information that I described. Now, all of that is assuming that both the departing brokerage firm and the recruiting brokerage firm are still members of the broker protocol at the time of the departure. Because if either one of them are no longer members of the broker protocol, then you can still be sued. So you need to check that out and be sure on the day that you leave that they're still members of the protocol. And there's a way of doing that. If you contact my office, I'll tell you how. Now, the other thing that you need to know is that some brokerage firms have never been part of the broker protocol. And those are the big wirehouses like Fidelity, Charles Schwab, that gets their business not necessarily from recruiting brokers, but from the heavy advertising and the expenses that they incur. The thing that you need, what's most interesting, is that the firms that started the broker protocol, now Morgan Stanley and UBS, have defected. They no longer are members of the broker protocol because they believe that the cost to them of being still part of the broker protocol is greater than the litigation costs that they will incur. They've suffered a lot of major defections to investment advisory firms, and so they're enforcing their covenants not to compete, their non-solicitation agreements against those brokers that are leaving. But those suits are less today because generally the new brokers, being recruited, the recruiting brokerage firms, they all know how to not violate those non-solicitation agreements. People today have relationships through social media. And if you're really a good broker today, once you depart, your customers will know to find you almost immediately by just going onto the internet. And so regardless, one last thing I'd like to tell you is that the broker protocol may deal with one-on-one or two-on-two brokers, but they won't protect a recruiting brokerage firm from raiding a large number of brokers from the other firm. So this is a difficult area to understand and to analyze. You have to have up-to-date and up-to-minute information on who's a member of the protocol. And so if you have this problem, continue to call our offices. We'll answer your questions. And if you decide that you need assistance, we're here for you.